So thank you guys again for being on. So I'm going to follow up this training with an email that I already have drafted for you guys with some links to websites that I have found through some research to have really good scripting for you guys, some longer scripting, some shorter scripting. And then also a few YouTube videos that I went through in preparation for this training that I think are both inspiring, but also have some really good tips to make the most out of your cold calling. So I'm going to go ahead and share my PowerPoint. So hold on real quick. Oops. I got to have it open in order to do that. So I don't know why this is like not, hold on. Sorry guys, technical difficulties here. Awesome. Okay, I've never shared it this way before, so I hope that this works. But I'm going to go ahead and get started. Curtis, are you able to see my screen?
Yes.
Perfect. Awesome. Okay, so I decided to subtitle this Mind Set Go because it's the idea of mindset. But you guys also, I've noticed a lot of agents have analysis paralysis, meaning you guys are so good at researching and coming to coaching and doing the training, going to classes on Sales Pro, but it's sort of like information overload and there isn't always a lot of action items taken, right? So this is sort of designed to give you guys a way to, yes, get that mindset, get that information, but also put some things into real action right away. So these are kind of the 6 steps that I look at when I look at cold calling. Mindset, plan, set the stage, execute, regroup, and then mindset again. I can't say it enough. You guys it's going to be like a drinking game now. Every time Rachel says mindset, take a shot. If you're home, go for it. But it's so important, especially when cold calling, because people can be mean sometimes, and it's really important to keep that positivity and that excitement. So I'll start with the first mindset. So again, cold calling can be rough. It can be brutal. It can really shake your self-confidence and your self-worth. So just keep your mind in the right place to protect it from negativity, from those thoughts of you're not good enough, or people are going to hang up on you, or people did just hang up on you, and what are you going to do now? So keep positive. That is so important. The other thing that I've really learned is that people can hear smiles, which sounds like a really silly thing to see in writing and say out loud, but it's very true. I've noticed that I cold call and so does Curtis. You guys know that we have to recruit as well. And I look at it as the exact same thing as you guys prospecting and cold calling, because some of the agents we're calling we've never met before, and some of them we have a warm relationship with, and that's the same for you guys. Some people you're calling straight cold, whether they're FSBOs or expireds or canceled, and then some people you're calling because you have somewhat of a warm touch. Maybe you did a deal with them, you helped them buy something 4 years ago and you just didn't stay in touch, so that's kind of like a lukewarm call. But you have to remember that they do hear you smile. And I've noticed that for me and my calls, and I'm sure Curtis could say the same, those days where I don't have a lot of positivity when I start and I don't answer the phone or say, hey, this is Rachel with a big smile on my face, it makes a big difference in how those calls go. So keep those smiles. I was talking with Curtis this morning about this training, and we were talking about how we listen to pump up music before we start. So every Thursday morning, all of your management team does what we call call around, which is our time to do calls to prospective agents, right? So for you guys, same concept. So I'll often play like workout music and like pump up music in my car on my way to call around, so I can just be ready to start it with the mindset of, everyone's going to answer their phone. Everyone's going to love me from the onset. I am just going to get all of the agents today. And for you guys, it's I'm going to get all of the clients today. And that's that mindset that's going to pull you through. The other thing that I think is so important, and last week I coached on this, was your value proposition. When you go into cold calling, you need to have your value proposition front and center in your mind and ready for you to articulate so quickly. But this goes into that confidence level. If I know when I'm making a call what my value is to that person on the other end, it's going to be a much better phone call. So don't just go into calls blindly. Think about what your value is as an agent. What are you going to say to them that might strike them differently, because cold calling, you have to figure a lot of FSBOs, expireds, and cancels are getting a lot of calls. So you want to be that person that can actually make them say yes to a meeting and then yes to potentially hiring you. So that value proposition is going to be so important. And then remind yourself why you are cold calling, okay? And use that to fuel your calls. Business is really weird this year. I don't have to tell any of you guys. We had stay-at-home order for 3 months, even though we are an essential business and you guys are all essential workers. It's kind of been weird and ups and downs. But the agents right now that are having closings that are super, super busy, it's because they put in the work during the stay-at-home order with calls, both cold, warm, and hot calls to their sphere and to farming, right? To FSBOs, expireds, and canceleds. And now they're depositing those checks. And that's really important. So remind yourself why it is you're choosing to do this. There's a lot of ways to make money in this industry. Cold calling is just one of them. And if you can't think of a personal and professional good reason to do it, don't have this on your list of things to do, because you're going to hate it and that's going to come across in the call, right? So kind of keep these things in the back of your mind as you go through. And then plan. So what's super important about cold calling is strategy, and really think about what you're doing to make the most out of your calls. It's not about calling 500 people a day or a week. It's about calling the right people, having the right dialogue, and making sure you've done your research and your work. So when you plan, think about your goals that you want to achieve and then set everything accordingly. So time block cold calling into your schedule. Leave a little bit of white time before and a little bit of white time after, but every single day you should have 45 minutes to an hour of cold calling that's in your calendar. This is the biggest thing that I see a lot of times with time blocking is it's a block, I can move it around. And if I don't get to it this day, I'll put it on tomorrow. But if in your calendar every single day there's time blocking, and you try to move Monday to Tuesday, now you're going to have 2 things on Tuesday for time blocking. It's going to really mess you up. This has to be something valuable to you. You have to see the value in it in order for your like mind to tell you, okay, I got to make this happen for myself. So think about that. And how many calls do you want to make? Once you have been cold calling for about a month, maybe 2 months, you'll start to have a rhythm down of how many people can I call in 1 hour? How many conversations can I have? And am I good at getting those conversations to a close, which would mean an appointment with that person? You'll start to understand what that timing is and how well you can do it. What is your appointment goal? How many appointments are you trying to make that day, that week, and that month? And then how is that converting for you? And then also, how are you managing your attention during this? So I'm going to go, the next one is set the stage, and I'll kind of go through that of how you're keeping your attention hyper focused on this, but you really need to plan for cold calling. The last thing you want to do is hit that 10 a.m. cold calling time block and you're just sitting in front of your computer and you're like, okay, I guess I should find people to call. No, you want to go into that time frame knowing the people you're going to call, how many people you want to convert into appointments, and what your goal is at the end of the day. So for some quick math for you guys, because I get asked this a lot, and so does Curtis, how many calls should I make? Like, what should be a goal? A nice rule of thumb is the 5-3-2 rule. If you make 5 calls a day, so that's 25 a week, that should result in 3 appointments per week, which should result in 2 new clients per month. Whether that's a listing that you're getting because you're cold calling, maybe they're going to buy as well, whatever that may be. So 5 calls a day, 3 appointments per week, 2 new clients per month is a really good goal for you guys. And honestly, I don't know a single one of us that can't make 5 calls a day. Truly. 5 calls a day, that might even only be 30 minutes. So if you're going to decide I'm going to only do 5 calls a day, so my first 30 minutes of my time block of the hour is going to be identifying the FSBOs I want to call and articulating a good value prop based on what I'm seeing. Maybe the first sale by owner has crappy photos, and right off the bat, you're like, oh, I'm going to hit them with listing concierge and how we're going to have great photos. Or maybe you're seeing an expired listing that was totally cluttered and you think I can offer staging when I make that call. And then the other 30 minutes of that time block is making those 5 calls, but everything fits within that one time block and you're not having extra time. So really think about being strategic, because if you decide that you want a cold call and it's an important thing for growing your business, but you go into it every day kind of flying by the seat of your pants, you're not going to see the results that you want to see. And it's going to be something you chuck off and never do in your business again. And I think it can be very powerful. It can reap a lot of rewards for you, but only if you think of it strategically. As a realtor, your time is your money. That's a huge value. And I don't want to see any of you guys wasting time because of poor planning. So always keep that as your second step. Oops, now I gotta go to, there we go. So set the stage. I believe in this wholeheartedly because I fall into the opposite trap all of the time. But you really want to create a space that's going to work for you. So I challenge you guys all to turn your phone notifications off. If you are going to spend an hour cold calling, that's what you should be focused on in that hour. There are not a lot of things that are true life or death emergencies in real estate. Okay, we like to think that there's a lot of emergencies, and some things have to be, okay, but other things can wait 45 minutes for you to get back to it. It's all about setting that expectation. Do not check your email. This is not email time. This is hyper-focus time. Don't look at social media, which as the queen of social media is so hard for me to even say, but it's very, very true. Don't look at it. Do have your MLS open, because whether you're calling an expired or canceled, maybe you need to look at the MLS. But if you're calling a FSBO, you're going to want to know, have they listed before? When did they buy it? Are they in the archives? What's on around them as a competitive listing that I can talk about on the phone with them? So I think having the MLS open is important. Keep impeccable notes, okay? Because then you can drop these into your CRM afterwards. So that way, when you're following up with Jane Doe at 123 Main Street, you know what you talked about. You can ask, oh my gosh, how's little Oscar, your dog, doing? Because she mentioned it to you on your earlier call. I don't know about you guys, but we're just bombarded with information every day that if I don't write it down, if I'm not putting it in my CRM, if it's not in my calendar, I'm forgetting. So really think about that and how you can make it work for you guys there. And then do have your scripts handy. So that's one thing that Curtis and I really focus on when we're doing our recruiting is I have on my desktop PDFs of the scripts that are given to us to potentially use. Do I sit there and read them verbatim? No, because that's not the point of a script. A script is a guide. And I think that's really important for all of you guys to understand, because if I just read a script verbatim, it's going to sound like a robot. It's not going to sound like me at all. And I think that's something that is important for you guys all to know right now. But the guide is key because it's there. So when you get tripped up, when you are at a loss to say something, you have sentences right in front of your face that you can easily reference to go ahead and kind of get your mind back on track. It has saved me a lot because as chatty as I am and as charming as I believe myself to be, don't anyone talk on that because I'm sure you have your own opinions. I get tongue-tied sometimes and I can feel like very nervous or insecure when I'm talking. And so having that script to kind of root you and pull you back is really important. But especially for the newer agents on this call, the more experienced agents probably know this. You're never going to read verbatim. Again, use it as a guide and get it down. But you can practice these scripts verbatim with your friends or your family or even other realtors, because once you have the script down, then you can start to add your own inflections and your own different takes on things. So that's also important too, to kind of know what it is that you're going to want to say and how to spin it so it sounds like Jane, so it sounds like Denny, so it sounds like Netta. You know, think of it like that. So I did pull a few scripting samples. Like I said, I'm going to send all of these in an email with a couple YouTube videos and attachments, but Curtis and I wanted to do a little role play for you guys live. So in this case, we are going to read it verbatim because I wrote it like I would talk. So we're going to read it verbatim, but I am going to be R, which stands for realtor. And Curtis is going to be O, which stands for owner. And I even did you guys a solid. I'm going to send you the slide deck. So don't everybody try to take a picture of this or anything like that. But I essentially broke it out into, he's going to say no to cooperating with agents. And we'll do that dialogue first. And then he's going to say, yes, I do cooperate with agents. And we'll do that dialogue. So we can add a little spin. Curtis, don't be too hard on me, okay? It's 2 o'clock in the afternoon. I'm drinking a Diet Coke, but that caffeine hasn't hit it yet, so. Okay, you ready?
I am.
Okay. Ring, ring, ring. No, I'm just kidding. Okay. Hi, Curtis. I've just found this home for sale and I have a few questions about it. Are you the homeowner?
Yes.
Great. My name is Rachel Scheid, and I am a realtor with Coldwell Banker Realty. And I actually wanted to reach out to you today because I'm actively working with a few buyers that are very interested in this area. Would you mind telling me what price you're asking for the house?
I'm asking $313,000.
Cool. Are you currently, guys, cool. Probably should have changed that. Awesome. Are you currently cooperating with real estate agents at this time?
No.
Okay. Can I ask why?
I just don't feel there's value in a real estate agent.
I can definitely appreciate that. Have you had bad experiences in the past to make you feel this way?
Yes.
I was afraid of that. You know, unfortunately, I cannot change the bad experiences, but I do know the value that I add to my sellers when I represent them. And I'm not saying that you're going to use me, but would you be open to me coming by, seeing your property, and giving you my value proposition? At the very best, Curtis, we work together to sell your home. At the worst, I've now seen your home and I can recommend it to the potential buyers that I'm working with. What do you say?
Okay, sure.
Does Monday at 5:30 work or perhaps Tuesday at 6?
That's all the script I get.
Okay. So a couple things on this side. Now, obviously, Curtis didn't give me as hard a time as some of the buyer and the potential sellers are going to give you. But things I wanted to highlight first and foremost here is if you notice from my tone and my inflection, I was trying to be very relationship based with him. I was understanding of the fact that he doesn't like realtors, and we all know some realtors that maybe we don't want to work with either, right? And you're going to come across this. Unfortunately, not everyone in our industry is perfect and a sunshine and rainbow to work with. So I think it's really important to empathize with that. And if a FSBO has not great feelings towards a realtor or any realtor, I think it's important to acknowledge that, but also kind of talk about how you're not just any realtor and you feel like you can change that for them. So I also focused on, instead of saying, do you think I could come to the property, see it, and then give you my CMA or tell you my marketing plan? I focused on my value proposition because Curtis has already told me he's not big into realtors. So me telling him a price or telling him how I could sell it better than he is right now might not be a good ego play. Instead, I'm going to focus on my value and why sellers like to work with me. Then the last part is never ever leave it an open-ended when works for you for a meeting. If someone's agreeing to meet with you, give them 2 suggestions. Okay? So give him 2 suggestions of times. And if those don't work for him, most humans can feel compelled to offer the third. But if you just say, hey, let me know what times work for you, Curtis is going to say, oh yeah, sure, no problem. You know, let me look at my calendar and how about I give you a call back? He's not going to call back. So give him the opportunity to say yes to those 2 options or give you a third. So I think that's key. Okay, so Curtis, you want to do the no spot?
Yep.
Cool. Are you currently cooperating with other real estate agents?
Yes.
Great. I'm sure you've had a ton of calls from other realtors, but let me ask you, has any of their value propositions led you to list with them?
No, I'm not interested in using a realtor to sell my house.
I totally get it. And obviously you haven't been given a presentation or a value that you can't refuse. So I'd love to tour your property and talk with you about partnering with me to sell your property for the most amount of money in the least amount of time. Would that work for you?
Okay.
I made these easy, guys. Okay, does 5:30 work or Tuesday at 6? So again, kind of working with that. So if he's co-oping to an agent, right? If he's willing to co-op, that means he's willing to pay 2.5%. So I could get him pretty confidently to pay an additional 2.5% or even 3.5% if I'm going to go in with a 6. But now you know that that's your hurdle to get over. And again, it's all about the value prop. So I know there's a few questions in the chat, so I'm going to pause and answer those real quick. So how do you get FSBO phone numbers? I'll be honest, Craigslist. Zillow lets you list your properties on there, Craigslist, Facebook Marketplace. I see a lot of for sale by owners on there. But I do know some agents pay for call lists. And if you just Google like real estate cold calling lists, you can pay for access to those things. Remine actually isn't a bad spot for that either, because Remine, Curtis, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think if you just pay a little extra access, it'll give you the last couple people involved with that property. It'll give you their contact information.
Yeah, yeah. And it'll say whether they're on a do not call list or not.
Yeah, exactly. So Denny made a good point. So he said he doesn't co-op with agents. Toward the end of the dialogue, you said you would send him buyers. I did not say I would send him buyers. I said at the very best, we're going to work together to sell your home. At the worst, I've seen your home and I can now recommend this to potential buyers. Just because a FSBO isn't going to co-op me doesn't mean that I'm not going to do the deal at the end of the day, because that's what my buyer representation agreement is for, because there's a spot in there for me to tell my buyers that I expect 2.5% commission. And if we come across a situation where you want to buy a property where I'm not being co-opted that, you'll have to take that responsibility on yourself. It's right in there for them. So I'm not going to promise, and you don't want to lie. You don't want to promise that you're going to bring a buyer that night, but all of you guys are very active in your market areas. And I think that it's very likely that you could, and it's also good to just know what else is in the area that's going on. So that's the way to kind of take it with that. And then I do have a quick one for expired listings. This one doesn't have to be a call and answer, Curtis. Thank you, though. But I wanted to kind of talk about some of the different questions that you can ask when you're calling an expired listing. As you guys all know, especially if you've been a listing agent and you temp or you cancel to clone and relist, because that's the nice way of doing it when you're doing a price reduction sometimes, your client is getting tons of calls immediately, because there are some realtors that are just like within, hours calling those expireds and those canceled. So you have to think about the different questions you can ask that'll set you apart from everyone else calling. So I really like that. When do you plan on interviewing the right agent to sell your home? That's actually a really powerful question. And you're making sure that you are telling them that you're respecting the fact that it's their decision, but you want a seat at that table. And I think that's the same way when we were talking about value proposition last week, right? Ask people how they like to be communicated with. That's a huge sign of respect. Asking a seller, when are you planning on interviewing? Because they might tell you, actually, we've decided to stay because my mother-in-law moved in, and you would have just wasted a lot of time trying to get them to agree to an appointment where you don't even know their life story. So that's something to think about. If you sold this home, where would you go next? I think is nice too. We have a lot of people moving out of Illinois for reasons that are far beyond the scope of this coaching call. But I think it's nice. It sets up that rapport. Maybe they're going to say a place that you used to live or that you know people there. It is just establishing a relationship, and it's not just going straight for the kill of, I can help you sell your home. Right? Why do you think your home didn't sell? Or what do you think is the reason your home didn't sell? Honestly, most of them are probably going to blame the realtor, because it's never the seller's fault. We always know that. It's never the price that's wrong. It's never the fact that my bedrooms look like 17 people sleep in there every night. It's never that. It's always the realtor. So use this to your advantage now on this side of the deal, right? You can capitalize on that and say, oh yeah, really, I'm so sorry to hear that. Like, as a realtor that works with a lot of sellers, that would really devastate me to hear that one of my sellers didn't feel that I did their job correctly. What about your realtor didn't work for you? Most of them are going to say communication. I think that's a big, big thing that I hear. I've been like the second or third realtor on a couple different listings before, and 100% of the time it was they just weren't good at communicating. And so that's where you can kind of articulate your value proposition. It's really, I'm sorry to hear that. It's a shame when you're working with somebody that isn't keeping you in the loop. I know with my sellers, I always establish during a listing appointment the days and times that we're actually going to have a chat, because I think it's important to keep them in the loop. Is that something that you think would be valuable to you as you look to list your property with a new realtor? So think about that. The nice thing about cancels and expireds is they're a little bit warmer than FSBOs, because they've already agreed to pay commission. They've already agreed to use a realtor. They saw some value of a realtor at the start and they just got burned, or maybe they didn't like that person, whatever the story is. So that's a little bit warmer than a straight up FSBO who's decided that they can do our job better than we can. What are you looking for in the next agent you list with? I think is a nice question. And then really listen and understand what it is that they're saying is going to be better. Because if it's marketing, again, your value proposition of the things that you can do. If it's communication, your value proposition of the things that you're going to do to make that better. Or maybe it is pricing strategy. I need a better pricing strategy, and think about your value proposition. And then as you're getting towards that end of the call, one of the things that's worked for me in the past, whether recruiting agents or calling cancels and expireds, is saying, I took a look at how your property was marketed, and I gotta say, I just can't keep my realtor wheels from turning. And I actually have a few ideas on how I think I could help get your home sold. Would you be interested in setting up a meeting for today at 5 or tomorrow at 6:30? Again, given those two options. But I think being human about it and making sure that they know that you did your research. You looked at their property already on all the different platforms. You have an idea of what you're going into. So I remember one expired that I was calling, and I realized the realtor put like 3 photos up, and it also wasn't syndicating to all the sites, and they had no idea it wasn't syndicating to all the sites or any of those things. So it was very powerful for me to be able to say, I want your business so bad that I've invested my time and energy into learning about a property I might not even get, right? You don't say those words, but that's kind of what's conveyed, and that's the mentality behind it. So listen for the pain point on what they're telling you. Marketing, poor communication, not good pricing strategy, maybe availability. The realtor just put a lockbox on my home and like never showed it themselves, and that's kind of a problem for me. And that they were listed with ABC Realty down the block that has 10 realtors in it, and you're listed with Coldwell Banker, and either you can accompany every showing or you can ensure that one of your colleagues does it for you so that there is always a Coldwell Banker agent on premise. That's a big way to overcome that pain point. And again, think about your value proposition, and it could be the difference between them selling or sitting on the market. Feel free to steal that phrase because I came up with it last night at 8 o'clock when I was doing this. But it's going to be the difference between your home selling or your home sitting. And you can make the decision, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, on which you'd prefer of that. And all of them are going to say selling, obviously. So cold calling past clients who you haven't talked to in a while. And I did want to work this into this presentation a little, because especially during the stay-at-home order, I had a lot of individual coaching sessions with several agents at all 3 of the offices who were really struggling to connect with people they had maybe helped 10, 15. I had somebody even 20 years ago, but even like 2 years ago, right? If you weren't always the best at follow-up, if you didn't have them in your CRM, they're not getting your newsletters, you haven't talked to them in a couple years, it can feel kind of awkward, the same way cold calling can feel. So I wanted to work this into it because the nice thing is, at some point you did have a relationship with these people, whether you helped them buy or maybe you helped them sell by, whatever it is, at some point you had that relationship. And I think that this year, more than any other year, this year is a really good year to reach back out to those people, because you have one huge thing that every single person on this planet is dealing with right now. We are all in the same storm, but we're all having different difficulties and challenges as we go through it. But leading with empathy is so much easier this year because there is one thing that's entirely relatable that every single person is having to deal with. COVID-19, in case you guys didn't guess that from all of the hints that I laid thick for you. So think about that. And that's kind of the first on that list. Lead with empathy. That's actually how you should be leading all cold calling, is with empathy and the idea of creating that relationship and that understanding with that person. But especially with COVID-19, you're calling that person you helped buy a 2-bedroom, 1-bath condo 5 years ago, and you see on the MLS that they haven't sold. They're definitely still there. And what you remember about them is they might be in jobs that are probably working from home right now. You don't know that for sure, but you're kind of remembering that that might be the case. Pick up the phone and call them and just say, hey, it's Rachel. I helped you buy your property 5 years ago. I know it's been a long time, But if this year has taught me anything, it's the importance of keeping relationships strong and making sure that I can reach out to people and they know that I'm here for them, whatever they need. And I was thinking about you guys the other day. I actually drove by your condo and I was in the neighborhood, and I just wanted to call and see, how are you doing? It's a crazy year we're dealing with, and how are you doing? Start it that way. Don't start it with, this is Rachel, I'm just calling to see if you guys are looking to sell because it's a great time. I'm not starting with real estate. I'm starting with, I drove by your place. I know I haven't been the best at keeping in touch, but this year has really taught me above all that that's so important. How are you guys doing? And then really listen to them and identify those pain points. So maybe they're talking about how they both have to work from home now and it's become really stressful. Not having that dining room space and an extra bathroom makes it kind of feel like they live, work, eat, and play in like the same 900 square feet, and it's stifling. Maybe they have kids and they can't just put their kids in a fenced yard. They've got a 5x2 balcony and they don't know what to do. Listen to those pain points and then figure out how to address them. Third, be the resource. 100% of the time, they're going to start talking to you about real estate because, again, they own. But even if these are renters, everybody has a place that they live in. And every single person I talk to in my sphere, they're always asking me about their property value, what's happening in the rental market, or any of those questions. So be prepared to answer that. Know maybe the approximate value ahead of time. Just like, it's interesting that you're asking me that because, like I mentioned, I was in your neighborhood earlier because I've been helping some buyers in that area. And, 2-bedroom, 1-baths are taking about 15 to 20 days on average to sell, which is really huge compared to when you guys bought, which was maybe like a 45-day one. I'm just spitballing here, you guys, but you get the idea. Have those approximations of value or where the price has gone with those things. I think that's key. And then if it is a renter, help them understand what's happening with rentals in their area too, I think is important. And then drop by with a pop by. That's your 4th step. I love this one so much. Bring them a little joy to get them through this time. Maybe their favorite beer, or perhaps their kids are running around and out of tasks, so you have a puzzle you can give them. I'll give you a perfect example. Those of you guys who know me know I love Instagram and Facebook, hashtag on them all the time. And a couple years ago, I was out to dinner at Fountainhead in Lincoln Square, and I took a picture of the meal, and there was Stiegl Radlers, which are like those grapefruit beers, in the picture. One of my clients from 2 or 3 years previous commented on it. She was like, "Oh my God, I love that beer." Immediately, my trigger was, I'm going to go buy her a 4-pack and drop it off at her house. She just gave me a pop by out of nowhere. That cost me maybe $7.25 for the 4-pack of Radlers. I'm not sure exactly the price and the time to drive out there, but it made her day. And it made her feel like, wow, no other realtors like that. I did that with pumpkin pies one year for Thanksgiving, but instead of a reverse pop by, which a lot of realtors do for that, I drove it all the way out to a Boofu suburb so I could give it to her. And I did it in enough time that she could bring it to her work Thanksgiving, which was huge. And that whole party, she was just like, "Oh my God, my realtor drove this all the way out because she knew I had to work today and that I wanted to share it with you guys. So her name is Rachel if you need her." So these are just really cute, easy ways. I did a puzzle exchange with friends earlier this COVID. I was going to say year, but it feels like it's been a year of COVID. So think about those little things that you can do that are going to make them feel like, oh, this wasn't just a call because she's trying to get business. She does genuinely care about me, because that's what people are really resonating with these days, is that empathy. And I don't want to just feel like I'm a number on her spreadsheet. I want to feel like she really cares. Okay, so the 5th step is going to be regroup. So when you're done with these calls, that first 10 minutes after those calls is very important. That's not the time to just mic drop and walk away and be like, I'm done with cold calling. You just put a lot of time and energy and effort into getting business. So now comes the time to regroup and make sure that you're doing the things necessary for those to have a high ROI, right? Return on your investment, that those calls turn into appointments, that those calls turn into clients made. So what did you do today? Did you put your notes into your CRM and make sure you keep yourself up to date? Start working on CMAs for the properties you got appointments for. And guys, I can't stress this enough, right? Lack of preparation on your part does not constitute an emergency on anyone else's part. So if on Monday at 10 a.m., you know that you have listing appointments on Wednesday at 2 o'clock, don't wait until Wednesday at 1 o'clock to rush into the office and try to figure everything out. Give your guys some grace and some time to feel like you've got it all together to make sure that you have the best presentation possible. Did a particular phrase or script work best for you today? I think that's really cool. Curtis and I, we talk with our other managers after our call around and we say, hey, what successes did anybody have today? Do you have any thoughts? And today we got some good ones, right? We learned that a good phrase for some of the agents was giving themselves a promotion when they came here from a small brokerage, and we share that intel with each other. So if you guys actually had some successful calls, think back to those calls, and they should probably be in your notes as you're calling, and see, ooh, this phrase like really worked like a couple of the times. People seem to really resonate with that. Incorporate that into your cold calling every time, because you don't want to have to keep recreating the wheel. Focus on what is working and what isn't working. How did you make the scripting your own? How are you adding Jane's flavor into it, Curtis's flavor into it, Denny's flavor into it? Because again, you don't want to sound robotic. People are choosing to work with you. And that's so important. And so it's really important to be you the whole time. Did you leave many voicemails? And if you did, how are you following up? Text is always a great way to follow up. I will say a lot of people don't like to talk on the phone these days, but they'll text back pretty quickly. So think about that as far too as like, what is your text script and how are you conveying someone getting that call or agreeing to meet with you? And then one of the things I learned during the research, so if you guys do watch any of the videos that I'm going to send you or read any of the links, a few people were actually saying make LinkedIn requests. And I was thinking about that. I was like, that's actually pretty cool. It feels a lot less personal than a Facebook and Instagram follow. Okay, because LinkedIn is a professional page, a professional platform. But I also think that it kind of helps engage that client to see that you are really interested in going there. So always check them out on LinkedIn. But that's also a good reminder to keep your LinkedIn up to date and make sure it really speaks to your value proposition. So at the end of your cold calling, you're going to figure out what you did today. Think about what works, what doesn't work, what are you going to do later? And then think about what are you going to do tomorrow? Start planning your cold calling for the next day based on what happened today. So follow up. Figure out and follow up a plan for the voicemails and the no's you got. So maybe I got a few no's today. So I'm going to make a note in that CRM and make a calendar thing that I got a no from this person on Monday. Friday, I'm going to follow up with another call. Because realtors are not good at taking no for an answer. And I'll actually tell you, using that phrase has gotten me appointments, okay? I will text and I'll say, in true realtor fashion, I'm not willing to take this no for an answer. Just give me a shot. At the very least, we get to know each other and we're friends. Now that's with an agent. So, at the very least, I'll know your property and I'll have it in the back of my mind as I have buyers. So something like that is always a good turn of phrase. Put in your calendar when you'll be calling those owners again. There's nothing worse than, and this has happened to me and Curtis, maybe it's happened to you too, but I've actually had a few people now's not really a good time. If you followed up with me probably late September, early October, I think it would be a better time. God forbid you don't follow up with them in late September, October, and you look on the MLS and October 12th, they're listed with somebody else. So make sure that if that's the dialogue that's being given to you, that you make a note of it and call them back when they've suggested that better time. Pop by their property with a handwritten note of thanks for chatting and a small gift, maybe a gift card to a local coffee shop. I'm a big fan of succulents because they're very hard to kill. I'm not a plant person, but my aloe plant is somehow survived now for 3 years. So I kind of like those low maintenance plants. That's always a nice thing to drop off. Check your time blocking to make sure that you're able to fit in cold calling the next day. That's the big thing. Ideally, you have it as a repeating event every workday. So 10 to 11, Monday through Friday, that's my cold calling time block. But we're realtors. Showings, inspections, closings, all of those things happen. And I don't want to make it seem like I don't know that those happen. So if on Tuesday, you already know that you have an inspection Wednesday during that time block, then figure out where you can move that cold calling time block. Wow, say that 5 times fast, to a different part of the day. Because what you don't want to have happen is you be at that inspection, your calendar alert goes off and you're like, oh crap, I forgot I had to do that. Whatever, I'll just worry about it later. But you're not going to worry about it later because you're wrapping up your inspection. The buyer's super pissed off about XYZ. The listing agent's been texting you for 20 minutes for an update. And now you're just in fire control mode. And then before you realize it, it's 6 o'clock at night and you have to eat and it's too late to call people. So make sure that you plan ahead for that. And then come up with a plan. Some realtors are a big fan of this, and I definitely wanted to include it, but a lot of realtors will drop off CMAs without the price. Okay, you don't want to give an exact price analysis, but we'll drop off CMAs as well. So if that's something you want to incorporate, maybe you got a few voicemails, maybe you've been calling 123 Main Street for once a week for 5 weeks and they've not gotten back to you. So you decide you're going to drop off a printed out version of the 12-minute gold package for Listing Concierge with a price range, but specifying on there that you'd love to see the interior to make sure you can price it adequately. Then make sure that you come up with that plan on when that's going to happen. I can't tell you, I'll admit wholeheartedly, and I'm sure there's some of you on this call, the best laid plans. Okay, I've cold called expireds and FSBOs and canceled, and I'm like, ooh, I'm going to make this CMA, and I make it. I actually even have printed it and put it in a nice folder, and somehow it never gets to their house. And I find it in my car 1 month later when I'm cleaning it out before taking it to get washed. So think of that plan and make sure you work it into your next day, because that's so key. We all get busy. We all get hectic. Sometimes it's in one year, out another. So make sure you really plan for that. And then again, we're ending with mindset. That's like my favorite word. Everybody take a shot. But you have to remain positive. This is so key. I can't tell you how many days that Curtis and I were like, oh my God, calls really suck today. And people were so mean. And I've had people swear at me, you guys. I've had people be like, don't effing call me ever again. I've had people that as soon as I say, hi, this is Rachel Scheid, I'm a manager with Coldwell Banker, click, they don't even like take my call. And it can be very defeating. It can feel very like upsetting. And I've had that with FSBOs who just rage on. If I wanted to work with a realtor, I'd be working with a realtor. Who gave you permission to call me? This is so ridiculous. Take me off your list. Whew. Woosah for a minute and remind yourself that 99% of the time, everyone's reactions have to do with them and not you. You're not doing anything wrong, and unless they're on the do not call list, then don't call them. You're not doing anything wrong. This is your job. This is your livelihood, and you have to have that mindset. Focus on your strengths. Maybe you're not somebody that wants to attack FSBOs right now. You'd rather deal with an expired or a canceled listing because you want to take more of the, I know how to fix something you've already tried to do, or I want to really start warmer and not jump all the way into the cold water just yet. So think about your strengths. Are you more conversational? Are you somebody that can bond really quickly with people? Are you a connector? So if someone says, you know, I could use some help with cleaning or electrician I kind of need or whatever. Are you somebody that has those resources available? Think about what worked and what didn't for the day. I'll be honest, I would say 70% of the bad days I've had calling, whether I was calling for clients or calling for realtors, it's honestly because I went in with not a great attitude. I was not excited to make calls. I was like, ugh, God, it's in my calendar. I have to do it. And that didn't work for me. And so it's a hard truth to look at your own self in the mirror and be like, wow, girl, your attitude sucks. No wonder no one wanted to talk to you. I don't want to talk to you either. Snap yourself out of it. So again, that's my last bullet point. I had written a lot more to this, but then I decided to clean it up because, you know, this is a family program. But if it was a tough day, you have to shake it off. You just have to, and you got to do it again. I really strongly believe in real estate, especially giving every activity 3 to 6 months of running before you decide, nope, it's not going to work for me. So with cold calling, if you're going to do it, commit to 3 to 6 months of commitment. I'm going to do 5 calls a day, 25 calls a week with the goal of 3 appointments per week and 2 new clients per month for 3 months. And at the end of that 3 months, I'm going to at least know that I gave 100%. And if I'm not seeing return on my investment, or I absolutely hate doing it, I have no qualms then about eliminating that from my business plan. And instead, maybe I want to focus on farming, or instead, maybe I want to focus on more sphere prospecting, or instead, maybe I want to door knock. Maybe not, now with masks, door knocking. I don't think I would answer if anyone knocked on my door right now. But there's a lot of ways to skin this cat in real estate. There's a lot of ways that you can make money, and cold calling might not be the one for you. But if you guys want to do it, really take that time to mentally prepare, do these 6 steps, and give yourself the opportunity to succeed in it. And it might suck, it might blow, you might hate it, but you also might learn that you'll love it. Like, as a millennial, I never thought that I would enjoy cold calling people, okay? It's literally not my favorite thing to do. I like texting, I like Instagram chatting, I like face-to-face, not a big fan of calling on the phone. So I really thought that I would hate it. And what I realized after 3 months of really committing, holding myself accountable to that 5-3-2, and time blocking, and the days where I don't have this cell phone notifications on, where I really focus, I realized I'm actually really good at this. And all I had to do was make sure that the script was more my style and less what I was Googling, right? That helped to, again, have like that to like fall back on. But I just had to get into the idea that like, hey, you're a boss. Who wouldn't want to work with you, Rachel? Curtis, you're a boss. Who wouldn't want to list their property with you, right? Denny, you're a boss. Who wouldn't want to list their property with you? And you have to think that way. First of all, period, full stop, whether it's cold calling or not, in order to make it work. So I've talked basically nonstop for like 40 minutes, 45 minutes. So we have about 10 minutes left in the hour. I like to be super true to the hour for you guys, but I want to open it up to see if anybody has any questions. You can raise your hand. So if you're in Teams, it's the upper right-hand corner. There's literally a hand icon that you can click and raise your hand, or you can put it in the chat. We don't actually have that many people in the meeting, so if you wanted to, you could also just unmute yourself. But while we're waiting for some questions, Curtis, is there anything? Oh, you already raised your hand. I was going to give you the floor.
Wow, that was a lot of information. It was all good. I did take a couple little notes. Just off your last one, mindset on the opposite side is, if something really good just happened, you just came back from a great appraisal, or you just got a clear to close, and you're pumped. That is an excellent time to call your sphere, to do some cold calling, because when Rachel says that they can hear your smile, if I do my calls standing up and I'm pacing and I'm energized, and if I just got some good news, they can hear that. And they say, how's business? I'm saying, I'm busy, I'm great. I just did a great appraisal, giving them an example, and believe me, they will feel you all the way through the phone. They cannot not do it. I'm cold calling expireds. It's a little bit more extra homework, but if you scrub the MLS for expireds of 2 years ago, or your neighborhood or your farm better, go back in time. Don't call somebody that just expired yesterday, in case that's what you're going after. But if you scrub 2 years ago and make sure that they didn't relist and sell, then you have an excuse to call them up and say, listen, I see that you were on the market 2 years ago and that you didn't sell. I always think things worked out the way they are supposed to, because actually, if you were to list today, you would get 2.5% more than what you listed for 2 years ago. You were listed for 265. I'm finding that, in today's market, you would get like 295. So if that's anything that you're interested in, or you're still interested in selling, I would love to help you do it today. I kind of cheat if I'm making apology phone calls to people that I haven't talked to for a couple years. I'll scrub Facebook. I'll see that Joey had a softball game last Saturday, so I can call up Mr. and Mrs. Joey and say, hey, I'm kind of embarrassed that I haven't talked to you for a couple years, but I was on Facebook and I see Joey scored a home run last Saturday, and I just wanted to call you up, and you all look like you're doing well. I don't even know if I'd work in real estate at all. It's nonchalant. You're just touching base with them. But then again, if you use your CRM and put it in InTouch, so, you know, make notes. So when you call them up and say, you know, I apologize, I haven't stayed in touch, but I'm going, it's my obligation and it's my new mantra that I'm going to try to stay in contact with you better. And then when you call them up 2 months from now, make a note in InTouch that Jimmy scored the home run, and you can, then you have a topic. So, you know, how Jimmy's season end up or something like that. It's just making it personal, little touches, not beating them over the head with real estate. Let them kind of ask you. Anyway, that's my spiel.
That is so awesome, Curtis. I was kind of writing live notes for you guys in the chat with it, because I think that's such a great idea, right? Is call when you're on a high. I think that's so important and so true. And I also stand up a lot of times when I'm calling. At the very least, I've caught myself a few times, especially when I'm really tired. I like dial the number and then I hold my phone up and I go, and I like take a deep breath in and I end that breath with a big smile, and it makes a big difference. But I sit up straight. I try not to have too many things open. I think that's so true, Curtis. It's such a great idea. I also liked the point of looking at properties that didn't sell 2 years ago, right? Because as we kind of talked about, people that go expired or canceled, there are realtors that are on it and they're calling them nonstop. But there aren't a lot of realtors that look at things that didn't sell 2 or 3 years ago and what it could look at now. So I think that's a great dialogue as well to work into that scripting. If you're and again, like Curtis said, make sure they're not actively listed, because you cannot solicit currently listed properties. But look and see and have that topic. Maybe their sale price isn't going to be that higher, but find the stat that will work. InfoSparks is a great place for this, but you can go in, maybe the price is kind of the same, but the average market time is down by 20 days. So they might get the same amount of money, but they're going to sell their home that much faster and probably for full price then, and not having to make a lot of concessions down the line, right? Price being higher, even just having the interest rate conversation of just being able to say, you know, we're losing about 6% of inventory this year over 2 years ago when you were listed, which means there's not a lot of inventory out there, but there are a lot of buyers, because rates are at 2.8% right now for the average buyer, and that's huge. So if you've been thinking about kind of what maybe this market means for your property, I'd love to be able to have this conversation with you further and talk about it. That's such a great idea, Curtis. And then I liked the idea about warm calling your sphere for checking out the social sites. So that's definitely something I utilize very heavily. That what's nice about your sphere is you probably are friends with them on Facebook or Instagram. If not, see if they're on there anyway and not private. Like my stuff isn't private, so you could just, if you're not my friends, you could still see everything that's going on, and just kind of pick up those couple things. Maybe they got married, maybe they've been spending all of stay-at-home order baking. Like one of my good friends, she bakes a different cake every Saturday, and that's like what she puts in her thing. Maybe that's something you can relate to, right? And maybe that's your pop by. You're dropping off a nice cool new set of measuring cups or something like that to connect with them. So I love that idea. Does anybody else have any other questions or commentary on maybe you're a productive agent that has had success with cold calling or anything? Bueller. No, I'm just kidding. All right. Well, we are right on the hour, almost 2 minutes left. As always, I recorded this. I can't even say as always because I totally forgot to record the first one, but we're 2 for 3, which is a good winning so far. So I've recorded this. I will include it in my Friday roundup for all of you guys to take a look at. I'm going to follow up right now with an email to you guys that are on the call with some websites that I found really good scripting on, but also a couple YouTube videos that I was watching kind of for you guys because I didn't want to send anything that was going to be stupid, but I watched for you guys. I felt like the mindset was really good, but they also have real like scripting as well that's there. But if you also just YouTube real estate scripting practice, Tom Ferry, Grant Cardone, Mike Ferry. A lot of them actually have like recorded themselves live in their cold calling with their teams. So it's kind of cool just to hear how they talk, what they're saying and things like that. Curtis, did you have a last thing to add?
I don't know if I'm, no, actually that was all great. A lot of information. It is, it's really just doing it. I know we always just say like Nike, just do it and it will get easier. And anybody that's on here, I'm sure they realize that you just got to jump off the pier and start swimming.
Exactly. Well, you guys, thank you so much for coming. I hope you guys have a wonderful rest of your day. And sell. If you have any questions or anything like that, Curtis and I are here for you. I was just taking pictures of who attended, so I didn't mass email everyone, but I'm going to send you guys that email right now, and we will virtually see you next week. Everybody stay safe, and we'll talk later.
Thanks,
Bye.
Rachel and Curtis. Bye.